The night was heavy with the promise of Christmas. In Fayetteville, West Virginia, on December 24, 1945, the home of George and Jenny Sodder was alive with the warmth and laughter of a large family. 9 of their 10 children were home, celebrating the festive season, their spirits bright despite the lingering shadow of the war. Jenny had allowed the older children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, to stay up late, a special treat to play with new toys their older sister Marion had brought them. As the younger children slept, the house was a picture of domestic peace, a sanctuary from the cold winter outside. But that peace was about to be shattered. Around midnight, the telephone pierced the quiet of the night. Jenny answered. A woman she didn't recognize asked for a name she didn't know. When Jenny informed her she had the wrong number, the caller let out a strange, guttural laugh before hanging up. An unsettling, but seemingly minor, event. Shaken, but dismissive, Jenny checked on her children before returning to bed. A little over an hour later, she was jolted awake again, this time by the smell of something burning. The house was on fire. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr., managed to escape the smoke-filled home. But upstairs, in the attic bedrooms where the fire seemed to be concentrated, 5 children remained. Maurice, age 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5. Their parents could hear their desperate cries from the rooms above. This was the last time anyone ever saw them. In the chaos and freezing cold of the Christmas morning, a desperate rescue attempt began. George Sodder, frantic to reach his trapped children, ran to the side of the house to grab the heavy-duty ladder he always kept propped there. It was gone. In a rising panic, he then tried to drive one of his 2 large coal trucks up to the side of the house, hoping to climb on top and get to the second-story window. But the first truck wouldn't start. He rushed to the second. It, too, was dead. Both vehicles had been running perfectly just the day before. The phone line, which had worked for the wrong number call just hours earlier, was now mysteriously dead, preventing them from calling the fire department. A neighbor had to race into town to find the fire chief, F.J. Morris, in person. By the time the fire department arrived, it was nearly 8 a.m. The Sodder family home had been reduced to a smoldering pile of ash and a blackened basement. The 5 children were gone. The official response was swift and seemingly conclusive. Fire Chief Morris, after a cursory 2-hour investigation, declared the tragedy a fatal accident caused by faulty wiring. He informed the heartbroken parents that the fire had been so intense it had completely cremated the children's bodies, leaving nothing behind. But for George and Jenny, this explanation was not just devastating. It was impossible. George knew the house's wiring had been recently checked and declared safe. Jenny, who had been in the kitchen, knew the fire started far too quickly and burned too cleanly for a typical house fire. And most disturbingly, amidst the ruins, there was no smell of burning flesh, a scent that anyone who has ever experienced it knows is unforgettable. The official story felt hollow, a lie built upon the ashes of their home. The Sodders' grief soon turned into a relentless quest for the truth. They could not accept that 5 children could simply vanish in a fire without a trace. They began questioning the official narrative, demanding to know why no bones, no teeth, no fragments of any kind were recovered from the debris. The fire chief had supposedly found a few bone shards and a heart, but after showing them to a local doctor, he secretly buried them. Later, Jenny, a former nurse, consulted a crematorium employee who confirmed her deepest suspicions. A fire of that duration and temperature, an open-air house fire, could never be hot enough to completely destroy human skeletons. Bones would have remained. The official story was not just improbable. It was scientifically unsound. The family began to believe the fire was not an accident, but a deliberate act of arson, a distraction designed to cover an even darker crime. Their suspicions intensified when George hired a private investigator. The PI soon discovered a bizarre series of events preceding the fire. A stranger had been seen watching the Sodder children from the highway. Another man had tried to sell George life insurance on his children, becoming enraged when George refused. Just before Christmas, one of the older Sodder sons noticed a man parked nearby, watching their younger siblings get off the school bus. The investigator also uncovered a disturbing confession from a bus driver, who claimed he'd seen people throwing balls of fire at the house on the night of the tragedy. Most damning of all, a small green object was found in the bushes near the house, later identified as a pineapple-style hand grenade, the kind used for starting fires. And then came the ladder. The ladder that had mysteriously vanished from the side of the house was found tossed in an embankment, over 75 feet away. For the Sodder parents, the pieces clicked into place. This was no accident. Their children had been kidnapped. For the next 2 decades, George and Jenny Sodder dedicated every waking moment and every spare dollar to the search. They refused to rebuild their home, instead turning the site into a memorial garden for their lost children. In 1952, they erected a massive, haunting billboard along Route 16, featuring the smiling faces of Morris, Martha, Louie, Jenny, and Betty. It offered a $5,000 reward, later doubled to $10,000, for any information leading to their recovery. The billboard became a local landmark, a permanent public testament to a family's undying hope and an authority's failure. They traveled across the country, following every lead, no matter how faint. A woman in St. Louis claimed to have seen the children. A hotel owner in Charleston, South Carolina, reported checking them in. Each lead ended in a heartbreaking dead end. Then, in 1967, 22 years after that terrible night, a letter arrived. Postmarked in Central City, Kentucky, it contained a single, grainy photograph of a young man in his late 20s. He bore a striking resemblance to their son Louis, with the same dark, curly hair and distinctively shaped nose and eyebrows. On the back of the photo, a cryptic, handwritten message read, "Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie. Elil Boys. A90132 or 35. The message was bizarre, almost nonsensical, but it was the first tangible clue they had received in over 2 decades. George hired another private detective to investigate the letter's origin, but the man took his money and promptly disappeared. Still, the photograph became the family's most treasured possession. It was proof. For Jenny, it was confirmation that at least one of her children was alive. It was the spark that kept the flame of hope from ever truly being extinguished. George Sodder passed away in 1969, his final years consumed by the mystery. Jenny, draped in black for the rest of her life, continued to tend the memorial garden and maintain the billboard, her faith unwavering. She died in 1989, going to her grave firmly believing her children were still out there somewhere. The official cause of death for the 5 children remains listed as fire, yet in 2005, the Fayetteville Police Department conceded that the case was profoundly unsettling, marked by a complete lack of evidence and unanswered questions. The Sodder family's tragic story has since woven itself into the fabric of American folklore, a haunted relic from a time of post-war uncertainty. It stands as a chilling symbol of relentless hope in the face of unimaginable loss, a testament to a parent's love that could not be quenched even by flames. The billboard is gone now, but the questions linger, echoing through the hills of West Virginia. The truth of what happened on that Christmas Eve in 1945 is buried somewhere in the ashes of a forgotten home, and the silence of those who may have known more. Was it a revenge plot by the Sicilian Mafia, targeting George for his outspoken criticism of Mussolini? Was it a botched kidnapping for ransom that went horribly wrong? Or was it, against all odds, simply a tragic, inexplicable accident? What do you believe happened to the Sodder children? And what tragic mystery should Roadside Relics investigate next?